All right, guys. So we're going to continue talking about multiplying polynomials. Okay. Today we're going to learn some shortcuts for some specific scenarios. Sometimes you can go a little bit faster if you have a certain circumstance. Okay. So we're going to learn some shortcuts. Now you don't have to use the shortcuts, but I think you'll find that they make life a little bit nicer if you know them. Also, we'll talk about how to multiply more than two polynomials together. So far we've just been doing one polynomial times another one. But you could have like 3 or 4 polynomials being multiplied together. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first shortcut here. Notice how these things are exactly the same, it's just that one's a plus and one is a minus, right? Now, just so you know, the box method will work on this. But since they're exactly the same and there's a negative, when you're doing, you don't need to write this, but when you're doing the box method, what's going to happen is you're going to get a number here and you're going to get a number here, but the numbers that go here will actually just cancel out every time, and that's because they're the same but opposite. And so, why bother with the box if you can just use this shortcut? And so here's the shortcut. You do the first number times the first number, which is x squared, and the last number times the last number, which is negative a squared. But once again, you can only do this, and that part you should write. You can only do this if they're the same, but with an opposite sign on one of the letters like that. Okay, so that's much quicker than the box method, but it only applies in that special circumstance, okay? So let's take a look at some examples here. If they look exactly the same, but opposite signs. All right, so let's do this one. X minus 4 times x plus 4. And by the way, it doesn't matter if the minus is first or the plus, because with multiplication, order doesn't matter. Okay? Like, for instance, 5 times 4 is 20, but so is 4 times 5. So the order doesn't matter of these polynomials. It just matters that they look the same and they have an opposite sign. And if so, you can use the shortcut instead of the box method. So here we go. X times x is x to the second power. And what's negative 4 times positive 4? Negative 16, and I'm all done. Just do the x times the x, and the negative 4 times the positive 4, and you're good to go. Let's take a look at number 2 here. Turn off that music back there. Okay, so what is 2x times 2x?
4x squared.
And what's going to be my last number? Yep. 3 times negative 3, right, is negative 9. And we're done. Nice shortcut. Saves you a little time, right? So why don't you guys hit up student practice number 1 there on your notes.
That's the difference. You think? I wonder if really. For what? Which one? Well, for number 1, I got a 2 minus 5, 2. No. Oh, it's 8. That's the same thing. Oh, it's okay. That's what I got. Okay, so for the second one, I got 6. No. Because I have braces? Yep. What? Are we gonna get that What? It's Maya. Are we gonna get that early today?
I don't.
I think so. I think we should. I really like you call
But I will come to the back of it.
If Amaya comes up on the card, I'll be
Yeah, I got
Oh no.
These are like 3 points.
Yeah.
4.
Today. Oh my God, what happened? I don't want that.
Check your work with your neighbor, guys. We're going to go over it shortly.
Yeah. Why?
All right, so Adriana, what did you get for number 1? A to the second power minus 25. Nice. And Adrian, what did you get for number 2? $25. So guys, the biggest error I saw was people accidentally adding instead of multiplying. I saw a couple people doing that, like 6 and 6, they got 12 instead of 36, or 5 and 5, they got 10 instead of 25. So just be careful with that, but other than that, you guys seem to be doing pretty good. All right, that's shortcut number 1. That's shortcut number 1.
I like shortcut number 1.
Me too, that's the best one. Let's take a look at shortcut number 2. Shortcut number 2 is a little more work. Not quite as much as a box, but still not as much, a little bit more than the other one. All right, I've got 2 different situations here, so I want to put both of them on the board, but they both have the same rule, okay? They have the same rule, just that one is a minus, one is a plus. So, first of all, whenever you have something being squared, that means you're going to have that thing being multiplied by itself. So can somebody tell me why this doesn't qualify as a shortcut number 1? If you could raise your hand. Why not, Aaliyah?
I think it's because you're adding one and adding both of them.
That's right. Remember, with shortcut number 1, one of them has to be a plus and the other has to be a minus. In this case, they're both pluses. But here's how you can tell you're using shortcut number 2. They're exactly the same. So they're not opposites, but they're exactly the same. So the first part of this is a lot like shortcut number 1. Okay, so here we go. Here's how you do it. You do the first times the first. What's that? And you're going to leave a blank in the middle here. We'll come back to that. You do the last times the last. What's that? A squared. Now here's where it gets different though. The middle term doesn't cancel out like it does on the shortcut number 1. But what it does is it's a repeat. It doubles itself. So what you're going to do to get the middle term, you're going to multiply these. What's that? You'll see you multiply those, and you're going to double it.
Oh, snap. I'll do that.
You want to see it again? Okay, I'll back up. I'll do the whole thing again for you. Ready? So here's shortcut number. I got a lot of what those. So we'll do it again, but make sure you watch this time closely. Here we go. First times first. Last times last. Middle times middle. But double it. It's all multiplication.
Why do you have to double it?
Well, so if you want me to explain the shortcut, I can. So like if you did the box method, you don't have to write this. You guys can just watch. But once again, if you guys don't like the shortcuts, you can always use the box. But this just saves a lot of time. So you have x squared, you have ax, and you have ax, and you've got a squared. Do you notice how these are exactly the same? And you've got two of them. So that's why. Now with shortcut number 1, they still would have been the same, but one of them would have been negative, and they would cancel, and that's why we don't have a middle term with that first shortcut. All right? But we're trying to avoid the box method to save ourselves some time, so there it is. So this one's really the same. The only difference is that you're going to get a different sign in there somewhere. So here we go. What does x minus a squared mean? Well, that means you have x minus a being multiplied by itself. This is not shortcut number 1 because they're not opposites. They're exactly the same, so this is shortcut number 2. Shortcut number 2 is first times first, last times last. Notice, what's a negative times a negative? So that one's still positive, but here's where things change from this other one over here. Positive x times negative a is a negative ax, right? So if you double that, you get negative 2ax. That's it. So notice that the difference between these two situations is that sign right there. That's the only difference. The rest of it's the same. So there's our shortcut number 2. So let's do this. Number 1. Okay. This is not subtract. This is an example. All right. So here we go. X plus 4 squared. That means x plus 4 is being multiplied by itself. Okay. So I'm gonna ask you guys to walk me through it a little bit here. So, Kevin, what's my first term going to be? Correct. All right. Then I'm going to ask Kimaya, what's my next term going to be? Very good. Very good. And it's a positive 16 because they're both plus, but nothing special there. All right, so now the middle term is the hard one. So I'll show you. It's not hard. It's not like the hard one, but it's harder than the other one. So the first thing you do is let's do some mental math, okay? So you put these together, right? And then you're going to what? Double it, right? So what's that going to be in the end? Now, honestly, I don't even really show this step here where I write that. I just do that in my head. I just think, okay, 4x times 2 is 8x, and I jump straight to the answer. Because it's a shortcut. I want it to be fast. But if you need to write that middle step there, then I'm okay with that. Well, it's not so much to be wrong. It just would be unsimplified. And on a multiple choice test, you wouldn't see that option. You'd see the last one. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at number 2. All right, so Edwin, the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite this. How am I going to rewrite it?
2x minus 7, then 2x minus 7.
Good. So just twice, right? That's what the square means. All right. Okay. Talk to your team. And I want to know what's the first term. So take a minute. I'll give you like maybe 20 seconds to figure that out, and I'll call on you. What is the first term? That's my question right now. Okay. So I'm going to ask Alondra, what did your team conclude here about the first term? Four x to the second power is correct. All right. Next, I want you guys to do the last term. So I want this one now. Talk to your team. See if you guys can figure that out. I'll give you a second, about 20 seconds or so. If you don't know where the 4x squared came from, by the way, I did 2x times 2x. So 2 times 2 is 4. X times x is x squared. few more seconds. I'm looking for the last term. Talk to your team. Make sure you're on the same page. All right, so I'm going to ask Shakir, what's our last term? 49. Is it positive or negative? It's positive. Guys, with this shortcut, the last number will always be positive because these are the same. So you either have a negative times a negative or a positive times a positive. Either way, it's going to be positive, all right? The one that will be different is the middle term here. So I want you guys now to talk with your team, see if you can figure out the middle term. I'll give you a second. Talk with your team, see if you guys can figure out the middle term. All right, so Brianna, what did your group get for that middle term?
Yeah, my mom does know.
Good, and it's going to be negative because of the minuses. So you do negative 7 times 2x plus negative 14, and when you double it, you get negative 28x. So there's our final answer there. Well, remember, I'm skipping the middle, so I'm skipping that step, but I'm doing this in my head. Put those together, that's negative 14, right? And then I double it. But if you want to write it out, you can. All right, so, and since it's a shortcut, I want to write as little as possible because that's the beauty of a shortcut. It saves you time in writing. So, yeah, this was a little bit more involved, but it's still better than the box method, I think. All right, so go ahead and try this guy. Multiply these using the shortcut. I'll give you guys a few moments. What did you get for number 1? Just the answer. It's gonna be plus 81, and the reason for that is because negative 9 has negative 9 is positive, but everything else looks good there. Nice job. Let's talk to Miles. Miles, what did you end up getting for number 2? Very good. All right, so there's our results. If you have any questions or need to write that down, let me know. So that's it for the shortcuts. No more shortcuts, but so we have 2 shortcuts that we can use. If they're the same but opposite, shortcut number 1. If they're exactly the same, shortcut number 2. All right. So now we're moving on to our next objective today. Are you guys quiet, please? So we're moving on into our second objective now. We're moving away from the shortcuts. We're going to use them, but our next objective is multiplying more than 2 polynomials together. Okay? So, all right. So, what do we do here? Leah and am I teaching right now? All right. So, first of all, when you have more than 2 polynomials to multiply together, step 1 is to do any shortcuts that you can. So either shortcut 1 or shortcut 2. Okay, get those out of the way. Next, you may have 2 or more polynomials at that point, and so if you have 2 or more, what you want to do is pick 2 of them and do the box method. You have to do the box method at that point because there won't be shortcuts anymore. You already did them, so you're stuck with the box method at that point. The final thing you do after you get all the box methods done is if there's a monomial, you distribute that in at the very end. So we have a 3-step process. Now, it's not this. You don't really have to go in this order. I just find that it's fastest and easiest to go in this order. So, shortcuts first, box method next, distribute last. Okay? So, let's go ahead and take a look at some examples here. All right, example number 1. I've got 5x times x plus 1 squared. Okay, so what does x plus 1 squared mean? Good. So step 1 is to see if there's any shortcuts. Do you guys see any shortcuts there? Which one do you see, 1 or 2? The one we just did, shortcut 2. So why don't you guys go ahead and do shortcut 2 on this, and I'll call in just a second to share out your answer. Do shortcut 2. I'll give you about 30 seconds, and then I'll see what you got. Do shortcut 2. Maybe going over. So Stephen, what did you end up getting?
I got x to the second power plus 2x plus 2.
Close, plus 1. Because 1 times 1 is 1.
Oh, okay.
All right. So we did the shortcut first. Now look at your steps. I'm going to label this, and you might want to do that too, just for your notes, so you know what happened, a week from now when you look back and study for your test. We did shortcut number 2 there. Now look at your notes, the steps I gave you guys. What comes after the shortcut? The box method. Now, we don't need to do that here. Why not? Because I don't have 2 polynomials. I've got 1 monomial and 1 polynomial. So there's no box needed. Now, if you ever have 2 binomials or 2 trinomials or something like that, you'll have to use the box method. But in this case, no box needed, so we can skip that. What's the next step on the steps that I gave you guys? Distribute. And that's what we're going to do here with this 5x. We're going to multiply that into the parentheses. So what is 5x times x squared?
5x squared. I mean, cubed.
Cubed, good. What is 5x times 2x?
10x squared.
Good. And 5x times 1?
5x.
So there we go. And so what did I do to get from here to here? We distributed. We didn't have any box method on this one. That's nice because box method takes a lot of work. So 3? Oh, because this is a 1. And when you multiply this one times this one, you add the exponent. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at number 2 now. I'll wait a second in case you're still writing that, but we're going to take a look at our second one now. See some phones out there being looked at. Make sure you guys are getting your notes. All right, we have x cubed times x plus 2 times x minus 2. So, do we see any shortcuts? Okay, which one is it?
Number 1.
Right here we've got shortcut number 1, because they're exactly the same except they're opposites, right? We have a positive 2 and a negative 2. So remember, shortcut number 1 is the one we like. All you have to do is the first times the first and the last times the last. So why don't you guys try that with your team really quick and see if you can figure out what goes there. You could do the box here, but I would say let's do the shortcut. Right now, we're on the shortcut. We'll see. I'm going to wait to answer that. All right, so I'm going to ask Denise, what did you get?
For the whole entire problem.
No, just the shortcut number 1.
X squared equals 1.
Good. Shortcut number 1 is x squared minus 4. You just do the first times the first, last times the last. Okay, so do I have a monomial times a binomial, or do I have multiple polynomials? So, do you guys think I need to use the box method, in other words? There's no box here. All I need to do is what? Distribute. Okay, so this is a lot like the other one. We had a shortcut in distribution, so you don't always have to do the box. Here we go. So what is x cubed times x to the 5th? I'm sorry, x to the 2nd. I said the answer by accident there. What is x cubed times negative 4?
4x 3.
And we get there by distribution once again. So notice we're multiplying more than just 2 polynomials together. All right, let's take a look at number 3. Number 3 is going to be a busy one. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at number 3. Okay, so do you guys, what do we look for first? Shortcuts. Do you see any shortcuts? Good. I see shortcut 1 and shortcut 2. There's 2 of them here. So let's do this one first. That's shortcut number 1. Okay? So what will that be? That's right. So x squared minus 9. All right? So that was shortcut number 1. I'm going to put that in parentheses, and I'm just going to bring this guy down. I haven't done anything with this yet, so I'm just going to bring it down. But I still have another shortcut here, right? You guys recognize this is shortcut number 1, right? So I'm going to rewrite it first. Yeah, we're going to do shortcut number 2 now. So x minus 1 squared means you're going to write it twice, right? And then we could do shortcut number 2. So let's do shortcut number 2 here. I'll give you guys a second to figure it out. And we'll see what y'all get. Shortcut number 2. X minus 1 times x minus 1.
You're adding like
When you're adding? No. All right, so I'm getting this. You may ask a question if you're not sure how, but that's it. So shortcut. So step 1 is to do your shortcuts first. We did it. I have 2 shortcuts though. I've got shortcut number 1 and shortcut number 2. All right, so next question. Do I need to do the box method for this? Yes, that's a box method problem. So on this one, we're not going to have any distribution, but we do have a box method to deal with. All right, so how big does my box need to be? 2 by 3. So it's going to be one of the long ones like this. So we have x squared minus 9, and then we have x squared minus 2x plus 1. Why don't y'all fill in your box real quick? I'll let you guys do that just to practice, and then we'll call on you. Positive. You know, your guys' homework turning rate is not very good. But I will say that you guys are a wonderful class of sophomores. You're great students. I'm looking around like everybody's doing. Most of you are sophomores, except for a few Greeks. No, but you guys are a really pleasant class to teach. I mean, you're all just sitting here, you're writing diligently, and I'm very thankful for your guys' classroom studentship. You could work on your homework a little bit, but last time I taught a sophomore class, it was a. You guys are a blessing. You guys are a blessing. All right. Well, let's see what you guys have here. So Lily, help me fill in this first row here.
X is 1 power.
True.
Negative x. Negative 2x to the 3rd power.
Uh-huh.
And then 1 to the 2nd power.
Good. And I'll just leave the 1 off, but that works. Azalea, how about the second row here? Mm-hmm. And? It'll be minus 9 because of the negative times the positive there. There we go. All right, now, sometimes the like terms line up and sometimes they don't. And this one they don't. Remember how we learned before, like, these would have been like terms, but do you guys see that those are not like terms? So you got to be sharp to look out for that. There is one pair of like terms. Do you guys see what they are? All right, so there we go. So let's start by putting our biggest one first. There we have x to the 4th. Then negative 2x to the 3rd. And then we have our 2 squares. Now let's add those together. Now you asked earlier, when you're adding, you don't change the exponent, right? You just combine the coefficients. So 9 and 1. What's negative 9 plus 1? Negative 8x squared. I'll cross these off now that I'm done. And we got 18x and minus 9. So there's our final answer. So we got from here to here by using the box method. So what did we do once again? Shortcut 1, shortcut 2, box method. This one doesn't have any distribution, so we could skip the last step. All right? So this is multiplying more than 2 polynomials. The steps are shortcut first, box method if necessary, distribute if necessary. Okay? Once again, that's not the only way to do it, but I find it's the fastest and less problematic way to go about doing it. Anybody still writing? You guys can, well, I'll leave it up anyway. You guys can do student practice 3, and that'll be it for today. So go ahead and hit up student practice 3.
Student practice 3.
Oh, 2. Is this 2? Isn't this 3 or 2?
No, this is 3.
Oh.
This is 3.
Okay. Yeah, 3. Yeah, hit up student practice 3. Show them what you got.
Oh, yeah.